Support comes from Sunday Morning Cafe, presenting Resilience and Creativity, a concert and interview with Royce Martin, creator of Swag Time, and resilience researcher Dr. Tom Wagner on August 2nd, sundaymorningcafe.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Danny Wicentowski. Let's make a bold statement. St. Louis is at the center of pop culture. And now, before you dismiss my boast, let me make my case. You may not realize that our region is the home of pioneers of entertainment, people who actually shaped the music we hear and the storytelling we still see on screen. And on this show, we've had many conversations about contemporary St. Louis heroes, from rapper Chingy to Hollywood star Britt Lauer, but I'm going to raise the heat on this claim. St. Louis is home to several pop culture royals, artists that define a genre or even create an entirely new kind of sound. So who are these royals? Now, if you don't already know, we are going to play a little game, a Guess Who kind of lightning round. And joining me to play along is Laya LaFleur-Ituin, director of the African American History Initiative at the Missouri Historical Society. Laya, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
So before we kind of get into this game, give us maybe some theorizing about why St. Louis is at the center of so many great musical and artistic stories. Is there something about this city? What's in the DNA here?
You know, I think St. Louis is really a place of confluence where the rivers, cultures, and ideas meet. And I think a lot of times when people think about St. Louis, they often just think about the Gateway Arch, barbecue, baseball. But St. Louis and East St. Louis in particular have produced generations of artists who have really transformed American culture. So I'm excited about today because I call them our pop culture royalty, not just because they wore crowns, but because they changed the language of music, film, literature, poetry, and performance.
Yeah, so let's get started here. We've identified some entertainers, and hopefully some of you listening, maybe this is easy, but it turns out a lot of folks don't know this. And this whole idea was inspired by something our producer, Maya Norfleet, experienced. And so if you don't know these, pay attention. This is a cultural heritage that belongs to our city. So let's begin. So let's hear a little bit from our first selection. He is the king of ragtime, and this is his song, Elite Syncopations. That's Elite Syncopations from the King of Ragtime. And now, Laya, take us out of suspense. Who is the King of Ragtime?
Oh, the King of Ragtime. I'd have to say that would be Scott Joplin. I mean, what came before jazz? People usually pause because we assume jazz was the beginning, and it wasn't. St. Louis was one of the places where his genius really flourished. And imagine turn of the 20th century, black musicians filling clubs, pianos spilling into streets, theaters, pub houses, neighborhoods alive with creativity. Scott Joplin.
And Scott Joplin, a tragic figure, but we hear so much of his music in jazz. And even the song we heard in our earlier segment, was a jazz piece from the 20s. Those people would have heard of Scott Joplin.
Yeah.
How much is this music still around, even though he himself obviously this music is around. How did this live on despite his own challenges?
Well, I think, Scott Joplin, when you talk about the foundation and ragtime morphing into jazz, and you talk about bebop and rebop, that is rock and roll. Before hip hop, there was Scott Joplin. And St. Louis was just one of the places where all of this happened.
All right, and that's a good place to move into our next, inventor, father, royal. This is someone in the most rarefied realms of rock and roll. Let's take a listen to someone who most people know as the father of rock and roll and his song, Johnny Be Good.
Deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, way back up in the woods among the evergreens, there stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny Be Good, who never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play a guitar just like a ringing a bell. Go, go! Go, Johnny, go, go! Go, Johnny, go, go! Go, Johnny, go, go! Go, Johnny, go, go! Johnny Be Good. He used to carry his guitar in a gunny sack, go sit beneath the tree by the railroad track. Old engineer would see him sitting in the shade, strumming with the rhythm that the drivers made. When people passing by, they would stop and say, "Oh my, but that little country boy could play." Go, go, go.
And that is Johnny Be Good, and this song always gets me. I can never get it. And it is the quintessential rock song, almost. Laya, who is the father of rock and roll? Who is the father of this song?
St. Louis's own Chuck Berry. I mean, Chuck Berry, there's a moment of him in everybody. The Beatles studied him. The Rolling Stones studied him. Prince studied him. And he carried his hometown with him. And so anytime you hear a musician who slings their guitar over their shoulder and walks into a stage, know that that's Chuck Berry.
And this song has, it has the feeling of the train. It has the feeling of being part of this energy, and it's got a bad boy at the center of it. Does he set the themes of this? How does he earn that title of father? Does he just hit every single piece of what a rock and roll song has to be?
He does. I mean, I think Chuck Berry really was the inventor of swagger. Like, he had confidence. He had style. A lot of that is really St. Louis, and really a lot of it was very much rooted in black culture and black history in St. Louis, and dressing to the nines, and things that St. Louis and the black community really, really has identified with, putting on your Sunday's best. And he just took that to a whole other level. And took rock and roll and this new sound that everybody, Elvis Presley, everybody wanted to just sort of touch the hem of the garment.
And it's so interesting. Someone like Elvis, obviously, I think we're still reckoning with the source of where rock and roll music came from, the blues, and the way it became popular through white artists. Yeah. Did Chuck Berry somehow transcend that, without translation through another artist?
Yeah, I think he did. I think that's quite honestly, while there, especially during that period with segregation, with so much. I mean, we know what we're experiencing right now. It's almost like, or somebody trying to turn the clock back. But I think that what he represented, he was just so unapologetic about it, and it scared folks. But it was magical, and you wanted to have it, and they wanted that sound. Yeah. So, yeah, all hail the king.
Absolutely. There is something about being the first, and then there's something about being the best. And I think that's something we can think about when we listen to our next selection of a pop culture icon that St. Louis proudly claims as his own. That is the queen of rock and roll. Here is her song, The Best. That is the best. And I'm here talking with Laya LaFleur Ichuen. She's the director of African American History Initiative at the Missouri Historical Society. We're going through this quiz of who are these St. Louis Royals. Laya, who is the queen of rock and roll we're just listening to now?
Ooh, the queen of rock and roll, Tina Turner, otherwise known at Sumner High School as Annie Mae Bullock.
Wow. And so remind us about some of Tina Turner's upbringing here in St. Louis. She is, among all these quintessential St. Louis characters, someone who really carried this place with her.
Yeah, she did. And although she was born in Tennessee, Natbush, she came up to St. Louis, and the region became really a part of her journey, her time at Sumner High School. My mother was at Sumner. My father was at Sumner. So Annie Mae was at Sumner. And so then, again, she literally, when I think about her greatness, sometimes it's not always inherited, it's fought for. And so she earned it, and she really rebuilt herself from the ground up. And I think St. Louis really gave a lot to her grit that she carried with her, and that struggle that in turn, singing over in East St. Louis with Ike Turner. So although she wasn't born here, St. Louis played a role in her artistic evolution and transformed her hardship into power and redefined, really, performance. And that's why she's the queen.
Mm-hmm. And going to high school, in the place that she went to, was that something that you talked about, or wonder like maybe it's something in the walls here, maybe one of us?
I think Sumner, I will say, and this is biased because my parents are alums, but folks at Vashon might say the same, but it was the first, or Vashon or even Beaumont, but it was the first black high school west of the Mississippi. So there is something to say about the historic, the hallowed walls of Sumner High School, and all hail the instructors and the students that are still there upholding its rich history. But it had a famous jazz program. There's so many performers. The original members of BAG, Black Artist Group in the 60s, came out of there. My father, Floyd LaFleur, Oliver Lake, also Lester Bowie, who is the founder of the Chicago Art Ensemble of Chicago, who later married Fontella Bass.
Yeah, wow, just in the ground there. Yeah. And Tina Turner, she passed, fairly recently, only a few years ago, and so there was a lot of remembrances. What was it like watching, people trying to come together and figure out how do we go on without Tina?
I think that Tina had such an impact when you think about female artists of today, when you think about Beyonce, when you think about Pink, when you think about Janelle Monáe, who's from Kansas City, right? So I think that so many countless others, like her struggle, inspired, and it uplifted women. It's like finding your power in your pain. So I think what Tina did, just all the way to her famous legs, she was the full package, and that was shaped right out of St. Louis. It really was. So I think that she has just inspired artists to come from many, many generations, and she reminds us that survival can become art.
That's right, and her story of survival is definitely part of really who she is. And now we're going to move from the pop ballads into the world of stage and film, and we're going to talk a bit about someone known as the mother of Black Hollywood. Now, this actress has played many roles across 4 decades, and many of those involve being the maternal figure of a black family. She actually played Tina Turner's mother in the 1993 biopic, What's Love Got to Do with It? So let's, again, as we continue our quiz, here's the mother of Black Hollywood singing in Disney's The Princess and the Frog, and singing that song, Dig a Little Deeper.
Don't matter what you look like, don't matter what you wear, how many rings you got on your finger, we don't care, no, we don't care. Don't matter where you come from, don't even matter what you are, a dog, a pig, a cow, a goat, had them all in here. And they all knew what they wanted me to do. I told them what they needed, just like I be telling you. You gotta dig a little deeper.
And that was Dig a Little Deeper from Disney's The Princess and the Frog, performed by the mother of Black Hollywood. A few hints on who this is before we reveal the answer. She was born in St. Louis County, graduated from Webster University. She has hundreds of credits from her work on stage and screen. Laya, take us out of suspense. Who is the mother of Black Hollywood?
The mother of Black Hollywood is Jennifer Lewis. And I will say this, I think Jennifer did not really care for that title at first. She kept being cast as a mother, and she makes reference of it and talked about it a lot, and then began to embrace it. So this one is deeply personal because I've known Jennifer probably since I was about 8 years old. The village that I grew up running around at Webster College, then now university, my mother was one of Jennifer's first mentors, Shirley Bradley Price LaFleur, and at the time was the assistant dean of student there. And so Jennifer would pour her heart out to my mother, and I mean, she talks about it in her book, and also there's a really great podcast episode that she did with Lena Waithe, the amazing writer and executive producer, where she asked, well, how did you get the inspiration for your character that you played on A Different World? And she said, well, that came from a famous poet out of St. Louis, my mother, the late poet laureate, and also that was her mentor. So that my mother really inspired that character that she played on A Different World. But I think really knowing that she embraces the fact that she was a little brown girl growing up in Kinloch, Missouri. So you say out in St. Louis County, it's Kinloch, and Kinloch was the first incorporated black town, and so in Missouri, and so Kinloch is near and dear. It was not simply just a place on the map. It's one of America's oldest incorporated black communities. So it has produced educators, musicians, leaders, performers, families that really understood the value of creativity. And so Jennifer, I think one thing I can say about her, you can feel it in her humor, her resilience, the church. You hear it all in that song, how she tells stories every time she walks on a stage or you see her on the big screen, and she's bringing community with her everywhere she goes.
And it's, that process of it sounds like she was typecast or felt like she was being stereotyped into this role, and then it became something that she has blossomed even more after many years in this career. That must be amazing to see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and she's just so really versatile. I mean, this is a woman who's played on Broadway, on
she's
big
so much
screens.
more than a mother.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but she really shows us that we can be funny, complicated, vulnerable, fearless, all these things as black women, and it just really it exemplifies everything that was rooted in her and laid the foundation for her in St. Louis.
Now we're going to get to one last pop culture royal from St. Louis. He was born in Alton, Illinois, and is known as the King of Cool. Here's his 1957 song, Move. And this is the song Move by the King of Cool, and I just already feel cool listening to this. Laya, who is the King of Cool behind this song?
The King of Cool is Miles Davis, and there is just one Miles.
Tell us, Miles, he's lived in Alton and East St. Louis. What was his place here, and why does he attain this level of pop culture royalty for you?
Well, I think with Miles, I go back to how I started this with the Mississippi River, and we often think of rivers dividing places, but rivers also connect them. And St. Louis and East St. Louis have a very rich history of the world of arts and artists connecting and collaborating. And that river, really, that people think is between us, connects us. It carries culture, stories, ideas, and musicians cross those bridges every single day to work together. And Miles Davis really exemplifies all of that. East St. Louis became one of America's greatest cultural crossroads, and Miles Davis is a son of East St. Louis.
And, like other artists, Miles Davis had a complicated relationship with St. Louis. He saw what was happening here, and he didn't like a lot of it.
Yeah, he didn't. And I will say this, a lot of artists, I love where I'm from, including, my father being a part of BAG, Black Artists Group, and how the musicians really left here and got a lot of acclaim in Europe, made music, performed in front of, hundreds, thousands of audiences. Lester Bowie leaving here, going to Chicago. So it's unfortunate. One of the messages that I have for a lot of artists today, as a daughter of this once great river city, but the daughter of artists, is let's figure out ways of really telling our stories through our art and being able to give back and be here and not feel like you have to leave. But yes, he did leave, but I think he absorbed everything. He absorbed the blues, church music, swing, bebop, all of those things. And he did almost the impossible in reinventing jazz, not once, not twice, but over and over again. And, I think what I love about this conversation today is that we really are in talking about the lineage, the influence that somebody like Miles had on, whether Keyon Harold, who, brilliant, out of Kinloch, out of Ferguson. Yeah.
And there is so many, more than those we just spoke, and people should continue to listen to these artists, and there's even more royalty, I think, being made. Lila Flor Ituin is the director of the African American History Initiative at the Missouri Historical Society. Lila, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Maya Norfleet.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.